Welcome to the Post-Purchase Pro Podcast.
This is the only podcast that dives deep into post-purchase marketing to help Amazon sellers increase sales, ranking, reviews, and profits. It's everything that happens after the initial sale that makes a difference. We call this the back end. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Post-Purchase Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean Hart. My partner in crime, Seth, is on a family trip, so he's kind of hit or miss today. But I have a guest that, I kind of like when this happens. This was a last-minute fill-in guest. Tommy was supposed to be here, and now we have this gentleman by the name of Aunt Willis. And, usually when this happens, it turns into a more dynamic conversation anyway. So I love it. I thrive on being uncomfortable. Most of you know that. I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. So we're going to jump into an episode of the Post-Purchase Podcast today. I want to go ahead and bring Aunt Willis in, is the head of growth at Global E-Commerce Experts. And now, Aunt, I know that Seth and I, and through Post-Purchase Pro, we've been engaged with e-com experts through our hacks webinars. And I know you guys on your team have submitted some pretty extraordinary Amazon seller hacks. So it's going to be a lot of fun interviewing you today. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really pleased to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And like I said, I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the fact that you are the stand-in guest is going to make this more of a dynamic interview. So if you would, I know Global E-Com Experts, you guys are all over the place. I know you're sponsoring a lot of events, both live and virtual. And like I said, you submitted some pretty extraordinary hacks for our Amazon sellers and that audience. So it's going to be fun talking to you today. Before we jump in, though, I want you to go back. Tell me, who are you? Why do you do what you do? And why did you start your company?
Sure, yeah. So, Global E-Commerce Experts, we've been around now for about 5 to 6 years. Started very small, and we started out as a company that is very kind of dynamic person and wants to kind of service the demand in the industry. And over the years, it kind of started with VAT, and then his VAT clients were asking, hey, do you know anyone that can do logistics and get 3PL? So he went and got himself a warehouse to do 3PL and logistics. And then that kind of translated into, do you know anybody that can do account management and product compliance? And over the years, we've kind of added these services on until until today, where we're sitting in a 75,000 square foot warehouse. We've got a duplicate in the Netherlands as well, and now we offer a full service solution that kind of one-stop shop that can service any seller outside of the UK and Europe that wants to sell inside of the UK and Europe.
Okay, fair enough. So let's unpack that a little bit. Our audience is primarily 90% Amazon private label owners, brand owners who are selling on the Amazon platform, leveraging some of the other platforms as well, Walmart and things like that, but mostly Amazon. And the thing that I think irritates me a lot when it comes to our industry, Ant, is that a lot of sellers, if they're ultra successful on Amazon.com, they kind of don't want to rock the boat and expand to other platforms. There's a lot of red tape. You have a lot of certifications and tax reporting, like you mentioned, VAT. There's a logistics problem. There's a language barrier or translations. How does your company, Global E-Com Experts, how do you lower that hurdle and make it easy for me as a seller to expand into other marketplaces around the world?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, eventually as we started adding these services on, we realized that the main barrier for region. So that's why we created what we created, and the whole service now is purely geared around making everything as straightforward as possible. So normal practice would be that you would have to, if you were a US-based Amazon seller that wanted to sell in the UK, for example, you would probably have to liaise with 5 or 6 different agencies to enable you to kind of make that happen. Now, those conversations can be tricky and lengthy. And, sometimes you're relying on one service to start the next service, if that makes sense. So it is highly complex scenario and it is difficult to execute, which is why the company was born, really, because we offer all of those different services in-house. So there's one point of contact. That one point of contact liaises internally with all of the rest of the services to make sure that the process is as smooth as possible. It is as simple as kind of going through the process with the sales department. They then take you through an onboarding process where we collate all of the relevant information that we need. And then we kind of go away and do the rest and, just help you on that kind of journey to success in the UK and Europe.
Okay. All right. So the UK and Europe, that's your primary focus. That makes a lot of sense. So are there some tricks to the trade? Because, at the end of the day, there are a lot of do-it-yourselfers out there. We provide services as an agency for Amazon sellers as well. But we also like to provide some good instruction, how to avoid certain pitfalls, how to take advantage of certain loopholes. In case there's someone out there who wants to try to expand on their own, what's the biggest mistake that you're seeing sellers make when they decide to do this on their own and try to navigate expansion without engaging a company like yours?
Sorry, we cut out a little bit there.
Okay. So what are sellers getting wrong when they try to do this on their own?
Again, I think it is just the the kind of collation of the different services that need to happen. They need to be done in a certain order. Product compliance is mega important. We need to get that piece right. It's sometimes overlooked by sellers because you can list a product that's not necessarily compliant. It usually comes ahead once you start selling a lot of that product, and it can really upset your kind of expansion journey.
Okay.
I think the other thing that is overlooked specifically between the US and the UK is the language barrier. And although we speak the same language, things are described and searched for in completely different ways. And that's really key. We do a lot of kind of cross-border keyword research where we monitor what is working for the brand in the US versus what's working for it in the UK. And there's very rarely complete synergy in what people and how people are searching for a product.
Okay. So Ant, have you also been a seller yourself? Have you been a brand owner and tried to sell products on different platforms?
Absolutely, yeah. So my career started as a brand seller in the consumer electronics world. So my first ever assignment was it was actually on Vendor Central. So we had a vendor account to begin with. We then introduced Seller Central afterwards because vendor became a little bit tricky and the orders weren't flowing through.
So Ant, if you will, as a seller, when you were growing your brand, what's one thing that you wish you would have known as a seller before you tried to start expanding into these other countries, these other platforms?
I think the importance of the kind of feet on the ground in the region. I think that, again, that's really underestimated. The importance of being able to gauge the market, being able to look at different trends and working out what things are selling, what's hot, what's not. Because again, even in Europe, in countries as close as the UK and France, trends can vary hugely between different product categories.
So you feel like having that local knowledge is a game changer when it comes to expansion?
I would definitely say so, yes.
All right. So answer me this then. So the majority of our sellers are Amazon sellers selling in the US, Amazon.com. With that being understood, we do some of our audience are retail arbitrage, some are private label, some are a little bit of both, some are just getting started, some are very seasoned sellers. for you and global e-com experts, who would be the perfect client to engage with your company?
I mean, that's a great question. And to be perfectly honest, there's not really a correct answer to it. The perfect company that would come to us and that would want to work with us is a company that is fully committed to a UK and Europe launch, and would work with us to help grow that across all of the different marketplaces that we can offer in the UK and Europe. I think sometimes we can do what we say in the UK, sometimes quite dangerous, because as with Amazon, if you're looking, if you think of it as an advertising campaign, if you went in with a $50 budget for a month just to see if it worked or not, the chances are it's probably not going to work. So in answer to your question, the ideal client for us is a brand that is fully committed to making it work in the UK and Europe.
Okay, fair enough. So I understand that you put together a special offer, like a golden ticket or something, for the watchers of this live stream, as well as the listeners on our podcast. So we're streaming this live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But then in the future, this will actually go live across all podcast platforms. So let's talk about that special offer and then spell out in details for those only listening who can't see the visuals. What did you have in mind for us? What is the golden ticket?
Sure. So the golden ticket is an initiative that we came up with that essentially gives one price for your UK and EU expansion. So essentially, the way that it's kind of set out is that there are a selection of different services that you would essentially go through, and there are some optional, some kind of non-optional. Okay. And once you kind of select the services that you offer, we will then apply a discount to the total amount of services, and that will be your kind of golden ticket to UK and Europe expansion.
I love it. So it's like it's the easy button. If you're a seller looking to expand in the UK and EU countries, the golden ticket, for those of you watching, the URL is on the screen. I think it's going to be very difficult to type that out, but let's go ahead and we'll have the post-production. We'll add this URL to the show notes so folks can easily click on that. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, just check out the show notes and that URL will be in there. Besides that amazing offer, Ant, can you tell folks where to find more about you? I think this is your website on the screen. If you want to read that off.
Yeah, that's globalecommerceexperts.com.
And then there's a hyphen between the E and the C. So it's global E-commerceexperts.com. And then if you want to reach out to Ant, find out more about what he's doing, because he's the head of growth over there. It's ant.willis at globalecomexperts.com. And is this URL, is this supposed to have a hyphen in it, Ant?
No, that's
okay.
Correct that it is there.
Okay, perfect. So any final words of advice or some neat little trick or your best kept secret for Amazon sellers that you want to share before we let you go?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as head of growth for Global E-commerce Experts, it's my team's job to make sure that the expansion journey is a successful one. So once you go through the kind of sales process and you get all the things that you really need to get up and running on Amazon, it's then my team's job to take, to almost kind of take your hand, if you like, and kind of walk you through the rest of the, the expansion journey. Now that means, more SKUs. We can do feasibility studies to see, how certain products might sell in certain markets. Again, really important, a really important piece of work to do, just to make sure that the product is going to be it's one that's got a lot of traction in the region.
So you'll vet the product for viability if we want you to do that, and make sure that the market exists using local knowledge, right? So,
absolutely.
Okay, good. So if I'm a seller and I want to expand and I want to engage with Global E-com Experts, your company, and what should my revenue? Is there like a minimum revenue that I should be looking at so that I can justify the expense of having you do this for me? What's the minimum? And it appears that Ant's
the initial expansion, the initial outlay, if you like.
okay.
Did that come through? Sorry. Yeah.
Sort of. So what should be my minimum revenue as a seller before I go try to engage you to help me expand?
I think, again, it's completely down to the brands. The outlay for the original kind of expansion is the bit that's going to cost the money up front. The ongoing costs are generally minimal and not a lot different to what they would be in the US with regards to kind of logistical costs and things like that. And again, we can shape this. We work with brands of all kinds. We work with multi-million-pound brands down to part-time people that are working part-time and just want to kind of get a bit more traction across Europe. So we're completely flexible in that approach, and we can make it work for most kind of levels of brand, if you like.
Perfect. So there's really no harm in reaching out and finding out if Ant and his company can help you. I'm sure that if they find that maybe you are not a perfect fit for what they do, then he'll point you in the right direction and maybe give folks a little bit of insight as to what to avoid and some of the pitfalls that are out there. And I really appreciate you hanging out with us today on this episode of the Post-Purchase Podcast. You're my final interview for the day, so I'm getting a little hoarse, a little scratchy in the throat there. But I just want to say thanks a lot. Reach out, and just once again, this is Ant Willis. He is head of growth at Global Ecom Experts, and you heard it here on the Post-Purchase Podcast. Thank you so much, Ant. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Sean. It's been a pleasure. And you.
All right, take care.
Cheers.